without rising, without annihilation, without permanence, without coming, without going, without distinction, without identity, and peaceful, free from fabrications. So as we discussed yesterday, the Buddha gave turned the three wheels of the Dharma, and so on. He gave teachings. So Buddhism, the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, spread from India, originating in India, spread first to China. It seems the words of the Buddha translated into Chinese are more in number than those translated into Tibetan, whereas in the translation of Tengyur seems to be more in number in Tibetan. So Nalanda tradition mainly is a Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism. And with regard to Vinaya, the Vinaya text, the text may have been written in Sanskrit, but the basic principles or the disciplines are same as those found in the Pali. For example, the Pratimoksha Sutra is there also in Pali. And according to the Pali tradition, there are 220 different vows of monks, bhikshus, in the Theravada tradition. And then the Tibetan Buddhism follows the Vinaya tradition or the lineage of Mula Sarvastivada, which follows the Sanskrit tradition, which was written in Sanskrit. And in this lineage, we have 253 vows of monks. And so, with regard to the 92 minor vows that are found in the Mula Sarvastivada tradition, so regarding the 112 different verses that are found in the Mula Sarvastivada tradition, the same category of vows are 70-something in the Pali tradition. Of course, there are few differences like that, which are not major ones. For example, in the case of how a monk should wear his robes, there are mention of 7 ways of wearing the lower garment in the Mula Sarvastivada tradition. And with regard to the upper robe, there are certain numbers mentioned. But then with regard to the lower garment, the shamtab, the skirt, in the Pali tradition, there is mention of only saying 1 in number, saying that the lower garment must be worn in the proper way. So except for these kind of minor differences, most of the vows are all same. So one time I was in World Parliament of Religions in Melbourne or Sydney. So at that time, there were some Burmese monks, bhikshus also. So they wanted to see me, so I did go to meet them. And so these 2 Burmese monks told me that we are same follower of the same teacher, but we have differences. So at that point, I immediately suspected that they were actually they may have read some books about Tibetan Buddhism, which is called Lamaism in those books. And so that gives the idea of practicing tantric rituals. And then people with the name of Lama were also known to have wives and taking drinks, alcohol, and so forth, improper behaviors. Whereas in Tibet, people didn't actually check whether somebody actually qualifies being or qualifies as a qualified teacher or not, but because they have some big name, they tend to pay respect. And so these two Burmese monks, when they said that we have differences, I responded by saying, yes, there are differences, but we have a common practice, which is Vinaya, the monastic discipline. And so I told them that according to the Mulasarvastivada tradition, I actually counted the different number of vows that we have and clarified to them, and both of them were quite surprised, taken by surprise, and said that, oh, you too have this kind of practice of Vinaya. And so I said, yes, we have. And so with regard to the Pratamoksha vows, we have the layperson's vows. And then for the monastics, we have the novice and bhikshu vows. And so monastic these Pratamoksha vows found in the Vinaya are actually the foundation of Buddha Dharma. And so the Buddha has even said that where there is a practice of Vinaya alive, the Buddha is not going to be worried, as long as there is this Vinaya practice. And so around the time the Buddha was passing away, he said that the Vinaya is like his representative. And so whether Buddha Dharma exists or not depends on the existence of Vinaya or not. And so without a good foundation of this Vinaya practice, the tantric practices cannot also survive. And so on the basis of having the complete practice of Vinaya, then you can, when you want to add or further, especially the development of special insight and special single-pointed concentration, then you have the tantric practice. And so in Tibet, we have the very good foundation of the Vinaya practice, serving as the basis for Buddha Dharma practice. And then in Sri Lanka and Thailand and so forth, they also have the Vinaya practice, which is the Theravada tradition. And then Buddhism spread to China, and through China to Korea, Japan, Vietnam. And so they also have the practice of Tantra and then also the Vinaya practice. There may be few differences because of the lineage that they follow in these regions, which is the Dhammagupta lineage. And so, in other words, all the three trainings are pursued and practiced in these countries. And so with regard to the Sanskrit tradition, the most important teaching contained in the perfection of wisdom teachings. And so countries which preserve or which follow the Sanskrit tradition do recite the Heart Sutra. It is found in Chinese, and accordingly in Japan and other countries, and also Tibet and Mongolia. So we all recite the Heart Sutra. So while reciting it, we should also understand the meaning. So in short, with the Heart Sutra mantra, this mantra, with Tat Yatha Gade Gade Paragate Parasam Gade Bodhiswaha. So the essence of the Heart Sutra is contained in it. And so this translated into Tibetan goes like this. It is thus. Tat Yatha means it is thus. And Gate means let's go. Or if you use an imperative term, you can say go. Go perfectly and go perfectly beyond. And Bodhiswaha means lay the foundation of Buddhi or enlightenment. So it is thus means, of course, the word is very short, but what it shows is it goes through the five aggregates, the constituent factors, elements, and so forth, and then it goes through the fivefold path, the four paths at the training level, and then the resultant level of enlightenment. And so it is thus seems to kind of summarize this whole all of these. And so this mind that we have is empty of intrinsic existence, inherent existence. This mind stream of ours is like that. So although it is empty of intrinsic existence, the emptiness of this mind, which is still defiled, is called the Kam or Rangshin Nirik, which is the natural Buddha potential or the Buddha nature. And then in the Dhammadhatu Stava and other texts, the basis of this this emptiness of mind, which is the mere clarity and awareness or cognitive nature, is also termed as Buddha nature. So both the Abhisamaya Alamkara and Mahayana Uttara Tantra have this verse. There's nothing to be added, nothing to be subtracted. See the perfect as perfect and become enlightened through this understanding of the perfection. And so, whereas the same verse is mentioned in both the texts, the Abhisamaya Alamkara, mainly the reference of this verse is that of emptiness of mind, whereas the Mahayana Uttara Tantra, in that the verse refers to the subjective mind, this clear light. So during the first turning of the wheel, the Buddha shows the Four Noble Truths. And then during the second turning of the wheel, Buddha mainly explicates on the true cessation and the path leading to that. And so mainly the focus is emptiness of the mind, whereas the Mahayana Uttara Tantra actually emphasizes more on the subjective clear light mind and using 9 examples or 9 analogies. And then this same subjective mind, the clear light, and the emptiness that is taught in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, and combining these two in the manner of progressively more profound cultivation of the more profound clear light in the emptiness, the Tantra goes through its explanations. And so the most detailed and precise explanation is found in the highest Yoga Tantra of these clear light mind and emptiness. And so Buddhism that is spread in Tibet has the Indian text as the basis. And then we have the addition of the Tantra in the Dzogchen practice. We have Dzogpa Chenpo, and then there's Mahamudra, and then Seltong Sungjuk, which is to say the combination or the union of clarity and emptiness. And so all these are point to the same thing, which is to say that they emphasize the use of the subtle clear light mind. So the clear light mind that is taught in this in the Tathagata Garbha Sutra and so forth are actually progressively shown as more, in a profound manner in the Tantras. And so it is thus in the Heart Sutra refers to the fact that the emptiness, the meditation on emptiness, cultivation of wisdom emptiness has been shown. So, from the point of view of the wisdom practice, aspect of the practice, we have the wisdom realizing emptiness. And then it is coupled with the method or the skillful means, skill in means. So the understanding or the insight into emptiness serves as the counterforce to grasping at true existence. Whereas to counter the very stains left by, residual stains left by those grasping at true existence, we need not only the understanding insight into emptiness, but it must be coupled with the bodhicitta. So with the aim to overcome not only the negative emotions, but even the obscuration to knowledge, then we should have the combination of both the understanding of emptiness and also bodhicitta. And so bodhicitta must support the insight into emptiness. And so if you have that, then the emptiness meditation and cultivation of the wisdom of emptiness is Namgun Chogdin. Means emptiness with the sublime, complete aspect. So there is this kind of terminology also used in relation to Kalachakra Tantra, but here we are talking about emptiness, wisdom of emptiness. To realize the full potential, we combine it with the skill and means. And so it is thus refers to both the understanding of emptiness and the skill and means, or the method aspect of the practice. And so it says in the Heart Sutra, it is thus. And so when you practice these two, what happens as you progress gradually? What happens is you tread along the path referred by Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhiswaha. And so, so as it is said in the 400 verses, so the obscured phenomena that are taught in the Buddha's teaching, in order to understand them, one should actually teach the emptiness to those beings. And so what this means is, if you have doubt about the teaching of the Buddha, and wants to do investigation into the teaching of the Buddha to see its ultimate goal and the immediate purpose. And so within the practitioners, we usually have two types of beings. One is the dull-witted, who actually follow based on faith, followers of faith, and then the followers of reason is the second one, which who are mentioned, who are called Wang Nun, or those with sharp faculty. And so these second category of people actually checks what is the ultimate goal of the teachings, and then what is the purpose of giving such and such teachings, and what is the ultimate goal of it. And when they see the reasons and the purpose and the goal, then they would have the aspiration to pursue the path, as it is mentioned in Haribhadra's commentary to Abhisamaya Alamkara's Futa-artha, or clear meaning. And so this is how a practitioner or a disciple with the sharp faculty proceeds. They're not only satisfied because some words are mentioned or given by the Buddha, taught by the Buddha, but they actually check into its content. So with regard to bodhicitta, of course, it has the dual aspirations. But with regard to this kind of a warm heart, it is something which is taught in all the religious traditions, how to be kind and loving and compassionate and so forth. But what is unique about the teaching of the Buddha, which is not found in other religious traditions, is the teaching on selflessness. As the Heart Sutra says, form is empty, emptiness is form, form is other than empty, not other than emptiness, and emptiness too is not other than form. And so this is a fourfold teaching of emptiness. What is done is the two truths are identified and shown that these two are conceptually different, but in essence they have the same nature. So what this shows is that you can't talk about emptiness without there being a basis on which you establish it, because emptiness is a property or quality of something. When you talk about a property or quality, you have to have something of which it becomes the quality, an object. And so the object of which emptiness is its quality is like the form. So the form, which is the basis or of the quality. For example, in quantum physics, the physicists and the scientists actually check into the physical nature of things, and they go from the gross form to the subtle and then subtler subatomic particles and so forth. And so what they find is that they cannot find anything objectively existing. And so this is something that the fact that things do not have any objective existence can even be found through scientific investigation. But having said that, when we do not do any this kind of critical analysis into the nature of things, how things exist and so forth, we have form and so forth. And so there is this conventional form. But the form itself is devoid of any intrinsic existence. Therefore, we say form is empty. And with regard to the phrase, emptiness is form, Aryadeva, this student of Nagarjuna, says, or Nagarjuna himself says, as I recorded this verse earlier yesterday, whatever is dependently arisen is said to be empty, and that is said to be designated, and that is the middle way. And the 400 verses also says, what arises through dependence has no autonomy. All this has no autonomy. Therefore, they are selfless. So what this shows is that because things are dependent, they are contingent, relative, and therefore they do not have any intrinsic existence. So in the Buddha Palita commentary to Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Buddha Palita says that if things were to have any intrinsic existence, then why do we, then we could just point to that thing, but that's not the case. And therefore, when we investigate into things, we cannot actually pinpoint or anything as being this or that. And therefore, things do not, that shows that things do not have any intrinsic existence, but they are designated. And they are therefore dependent. Therefore, dependence, something being dependent and independent are mutually exclusive. So apart from these two alternatives, we cannot have a third alternative saying it is neither independent nor dependent, but this. There is no such thing. We can talk about one and many. And so we have to learn about these kind of distinctions between things, talking about one or multiple and so forth. And so similarly, things either have to be independent or dependent. But what we find is that there's nothing which is not dependent on other factors, and therefore they are dependent. And so there's no other choice but to say that things are dependent. And then within the Madhyamaka system, we also talk about dependence in terms of how parts are dependent on the whole, or a whole is dependent on the parts. And so the unique system of Nagarjuna points to the fact which is said in the a sutra, where it says that what is dependent has no birth. And it doesn't have the nature of birth. And what is dependent is said to be empty. And one who understands this is heedful. And so, what's said in the Heart Sutra, form is empty, means that form is devoid of any independent existence. It is not that the form is not dependent, but it is devoid of any intrinsic existence, objective existence, and therefore, since form is empty of intrinsic existence, because if it were to have any intrinsic existence, it cannot depend on other factors. But because it is dependent, therefore, it lacks any intrinsic existence. We're not saying that we cannot find it through analysis for that object only, but the fact that it cannot be found if you put it under the lens of scrutiny shows that it is not independently existent. And because it is devoid of or empty of intrinsic existence, therefore we can have a form. So form which is empty of intrinsic existence, inherent existence, is feasible as being a form which is dependently originated. And so here, when we talk about emptiness of the form is empty, we are talking about the emptiness of form itself, and not just in generic form or emptiness. And similarly, you can refer to yourself. I am empty. Emptiness is me. Similarly, this can be extended to Buddha. The same logic. I am dependently originated. Therefore, I do not have any intrinsic existence. Because I am devoid of intrinsic existence, therefore, it's feasible that I am dependent on conditions. And therefore, we can talk about how I has this effects, is affected and has influence on other things and so forth. And then Master Nagarjuna says that the Tathagata is neither one with the form nor something separate from the form. And the Tathagata is neither in the aggregates nor the aggregates are in that. And so a Tathagata is in the nature of the Dharmakaya, but because Dharmakaya is devoid of any intrinsic existence, therefore it can come about through dependence on conditions. And similarly, we can talk about I am empty, emptiness is me, samsara is empty, emptiness is samsara, and nirvana is empty, and emptiness is nirvana. So you can see emptiness in a broad way like this. Otherwise, if you just think of form alone, it's rather narrow. So, form is something which actually is perceived and seen and known to even animals. So, of course, we have strong clinging to some kind of substantial existence of form, smell, odor, the smell, taste, the texture, and so forth. And so, we actually are dependent on these gross forms and gross elements, and the most gross of all these different things is the form or physical things. And then we can talk about the 12 links of dependent origination in terms of the forward sequence and the backward sequence, and everything is empty of intrinsic existence. Therefore, we have this the development of wisdom. Now, when it comes to developing wisdom, we are also talking about investigating through this kind of critical analysis. So even science, like quantum physics, through their own investigation, finds that things do not have any objective existence. They did not take this kind of knowledge from Buddhism as such, but through their own investigation, they find it. And so the Buddha's teaching, saying that there is nothing inherently existent, tallies with what the science, quantum sense science says. And therefore, someone who wants to know the obscure or the hidden teachings or the hidden meaning of teachings should be taught emptiness, the 400 verses says. And therefore, the Master Nagarjuna also says that ending the karma and delusions, there is liberation, and karma and delusions come from mental constructions, and those in turn, the mental constructions of the reifications and can be ended by emptiness or through emptiness. And so having discussions with scientists, I found that scientists actually admire the teaching of the Buddha with regard to how things are dependent. So they really like this teaching of dependence. And so we can see in the world that everything is interdependent. So from the quantum physics point of view, when you delve deeper into the nature of things, what they find is that there's nothing that objectively exists. And so the method and the wisdom aspects of the practice, in other words, the profound and the extensive path, are referred by it is thus. And so after learning about these, first by hearing the teachings, the knowledge gained through that may not be so stable. You may, having learned and having heard that the such and such is the path and so forth, you may feel, oh, I see, this is it. But then what you should also do is, since it's not very stable, you have to also think over and over about it. As Tsongkhapa says, whatever I have heard, may I, day and night, reflect on it and then gain conviction, decisive conviction that it is thus. And so that I would be able to overcome my doubt. And so you have to find the reasons that support the teachings, the truth of the teachings. And then also you can use the support of the evidence from science as well to gain more conviction. And so through the four different types of reasons or principles, as Master Tsongkhapa mentions in this praise, the four are the nature, principle of nature, and principle of functionality. So these are some things which even the scientists can accept. And then there is the principle of relation or relativity. How effects are dependent on its causes and so forth. And so and then you see the functionality of things, and from these, based on these, then you can actually use logical inference and say that, oh, if something is A, it should be B, and if this is B, and it should be this and that. And so in this way, once you find conviction, you really are able to decisively conclude that something is so and so. You would be able to have a very firm conviction, and nobody can actually sway you from that. Even if people may use all kinds of reasons, you will be able to say that this is not so because I have thought, I've really done in-depth scrutiny into it, scrutinized it in depth, and therefore this is what I've found, and there is no other way. And so in this way, you have to find the conviction through this kind of thinking and reflection. And based on reason, when you actually find a conviction in it, and with which you acquaint your mind, familiarize your mind over and over again, then what happens is you will draw, or you will develop the experience. So of course, look at ourselves. We are all selfish. Generally, we think about me, I, and me. So of course, although there is this sense of I, strong sense of I, and self-cherishing, which is very strong in us, by studying the texts, the teachings, and then learning about the benefits of cherishing others and the disadvantages of cherishing oneself alone, you apply these teachings within yourself. Of course, this sense of I has been there since our birth. Even at the time of our conception in the mother's womb, we have this sense of it, or the notion of an I. But you can actually release this grip of, through this kind of meditation on seeing the disadvantage of cherishing self and the advantage of cherishing others. So, for example, if you look at me, if I look at you, when I look at you, I would say, oh, here we have the Russians. Whereas when you look at me, you'll say, oh, that His Holiness Dalai Lama is there. But what we see of each other is our bodies. You see my body, the Dalai Lama's body, and you hear my voice. So the body and the mind of the body and voice of the Dalai Lama. You would say, whose are these? You would say it's the Dalai Lamas. They are the Dalai Lamas. But when you ask, where is Dalai Lama? who is the Dalai Lama, then of course you won't be able to pinpoint and find the Dalai Lama when you actually search for him within this designated object. So then I can also smell the flowers and see its color and shape. So the shape, the smell, and the color are of the flower. But if you take these apart, what is a flower? What is left of the flower? And so we can see the point of quantum physics here too. And so what emptiness means is that things do not have any, and everything is empty of intrinsic existence. And so it is thus in the Heart Sutra refers to this emptiness. And so if you couple this, the Bodhisattva, with the understanding of emptiness, so what it does is that when you take others to be more important and cherish them more than yourself, then what is the purpose or the benefit of it? Master Nagarjuna says, things that have arisen through causes and conditions, perceiving them to have some kind of a perfect nature is ignorance. So things that have arisen through causes and conditions, in other words, dependent on other conditions, although it is so, we do not see them, the things, being merely dependent on other factors. But what we see is what appears to us is that they have some kind of intrinsic nature. And that is also what we perceive and we cling on to, and that is ignorance. And because of this ignorance, we develop attachment and hatred or anger. So just as things appear to have some kind of objective independent existence, a true existence, we too cling to that. And because of this distorted perception and conception, then we have all kinds of reification following that. And because of those reifications, then we develop attachment, anger, and so forth, and then we create karmas which bind us and propel us in samsara and bind us in it. And therefore, when you think about emptiness, teaching on emptiness is not just to show off one's scholarship or learning, knowledge, but because we are ruined by these two factors, self-cherishing attitude and the clinging to some kind of true existence. Therefore, the emptiness, teaching on emptiness, actually counters these. So although we are full of self-cherishing and also clinging to some true existence, if we could actually go above these and become someone who is more aspiring to help others, cherish others more than oneself, and therefore you wish to gain the highest enlightenment for the benefit of others. And so it is possible that we can attain liberation and furthermore the enlightenment or omniscient state, because these negative emotions and their stains are not something that are unchanging, and therefore once we are able to develop the antidote to them, then they can be eliminated. And so with the help of the understanding of emptiness, the view of emptiness, coupled with the cherishing others and bodhicitta. So what we can see is that although there's possibility for liberation and omniscience and so forth, but beings are actually bound in samsara by their clinging to true existence and the self-cherishing attitude, and therefore you feel compassion towards them as well. And so once you develop bodhicitta within yourself, through this kind of training of mind, seeing the possibility of liberation and for oneself and then for others, and developing compassion, and then bodhicitta. Once that bodhicitta takes root in you and you are able to develop them, you have entered the path of accumulation of the Mahayana. And then within the path of accumulation, you have the small, medium, and the great path of accumulations. And then you proceed from there to the path of preparation, which is the stage where you gain the experiential experience through meditative experiential experience of realization of the emptiness. And then from there you proceed on to the path of seeing, where you are able to see emptiness directly. And so this is the third phrase, referred by the third phrase, which says Parasamgati. And then Parasamgati refers to the path of meditation. And so from the path, from the second ground of the Bodhisattvas, you start the path of meditation. And once you gain the eighth Bodhisattva ground, you are at a stage where you have completely eradicated the clinging to, grasping at true existence. And so at the beginning of this eighth Bodhisattva ground, you reach the purified state of the negative emotions. And then from then on, you are in the what is known as the three pure Bodhisattva grounds. And what you do from then on is counter the residual stains or the obscuration to knowledge left that is within your mind stream. So the wisdom of emptiness, so in order to sustain it, what we use is the wind energy. And so in the Tantra, the wind energy also is kind of, the movement is stopped. And so when you reach the subtle states of mind, the gross or the active grasping at true existence cannot happen. So the mind itself in Tantra is able to see the empty nature of itself. And then through the meditation in Tantra, you actually dissolve the gross layers of wind energy and go into the subtler and subtler ones. And so it is very clearly mentioned in Naga Bodhi's Leta Namje. So the three visions, unless you are able to stop these three, however much you may train and cultivate for eons and eons, on the practices of the practices of generosity and so forth, there's no way you can actually attain enlightenment. And so the Vajra-like concentration of the meditation, path of meditation, meditates on emptiness, and then the wind energies which give rise to the three visions and so forth are completely eradicated. And then finally, you reach a point where the meditation and the post-meditation are totally merged. And you never waver from that meditative absorption. And that is when you reach what is referred by Bodhisattva, enlightenment. So what this means is that you have reached a state where you are liberated completely from the negative emotions together, and as well as the stains left by them. And therefore, because you are free from all defilements within minds, therefore you are able to see everything as it is. And so, Changchup, or enlightenment, Swaha refers to laying the foundation. And so in this way you can understand what is meant by laying the foundation of enlightenment through this mantra, in relation to this mantra of Heart Sutra, Tatyatha Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha. So when you're able to understand the meaning of this mantra, you'll be able to see the content, the subject matter of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And you can see how we can progress along the path and reach that destination, the final destination, which is the omniscient state of Buddhahood. And so, knowing this, then we have to go about with the practice of the Dharma. Master Tsongkhapa says that if you have, if you actually have causes from here and there, then the result also will be something which is incomplete. So without knowing what negative emotion is and what is the cessation of that and so forth, just by reciting I take refuge in the Buddha and so forth, you are only getting the partial causes and conditions for enlightenment. But if you could actually learn the whole process of how you progress along the path and see the destination, see that target, the final target, then you'll be able to go along the path. So the Bodhi is that target. And so to reach that, to hit that, then you have to go through the paths which are referred by Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate. Both. And then in the Heart Sutra, there is this mention of all the five, even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. And so His Holiness was asking if the Mongolian translation has that word, even or also, because it is not there in the Chinese translation, whereas and therefore, because it's not in the Chinese translation, in Japanese and Korean and others, this word is missing. So therefore, I actually checked cross-checked with the Sanskrit original, and the Sanskrit original actually has this word. So it has its own significance, this word. Because in the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha taught only the selflessness of persons. So the usage of this word, even or also, signifies that not only the person is empty of any independent existence, but the aggregates too, which are the basis of designation of a person, are empty of self. So in certain texts, the selflessness of person is taught, and then the selflessness of phenomena is taught. Master Nagarjuna clearly mentions that as long as there is clinging to this aggregate, so long, to that extent, there is going to be clinging to some independent existence of a self, and therefore, it is important to understand that the selflessness of phenomena, the aggregates, and also the selflessness of persons. So if you have a person named Tashi, for example, what you first see is the aggregates, or the body of the person, and then you have, in dependence on that perception, you have the sense of the Tashi. So the self of Tashi is there, where his aggregates are. So in order to have this decisive insight that the Tashi does not have any intrinsic existence whatsoever, you must also develop this insight into his or her aggregates being devoid of any intrinsic existence. And therefore, and so in relation to a person and his or her aggregates, you have the sense of self of the person and the sense of person of the self of the phenomena. And therefore, the word even or also in the Heart Sutra is very significant, showing both of these selflessnesses. So we'll continue from where we left yesterday. Please open your books. We are on page 65 in the English translation, chapter 6, 75. Dini tezam ne min la tunchen tagyan rubgyurwe drove ne se dungya la gawa bashi dir charik. His Holiness read from verse 72 down. And finished verse 74. So people, athletes, for example, actually go to lengths, to such a length as to cause themselves injuries sometimes. For example, when we have the motorcycle races and people wear all sorts of gadgets on their body, of course, they suffer a lot in the process of training as well. So I know Muhammad Ali, a very great boxer, was famous. So when I saw him, he was quite, he wasn't that old, but he was weak. So, of course, physical exercise is important, but if you do too much, then it's not, it has its own negative consequences. So, with big aim, people do all kinds of exercises. They even say that if I could win this, if I could really, take part in it and so forth, then I don't mind even if I die or I break my legs and hands and so forth. So there are people who, why is a person condemned to death? Not fortunate. If they are released after having a hand cut off and so forth. And so when you do practice of patience, in other words, the path comprising both the skillful means and the wisdom, you don't have to physically toil a lot. Why am I who am experiencing human misery not fortunate if by that I'm spared from the agonies of hell? So you don't have to worry too much if you can engage in such paths, which actually brings about happiness in the end for not only yourself but others as well. So even if others may praise, so sometimes we become unhappy when other people praises our adversaries. Should someone else find joyous happiness in praising my enemy as an excellent person, why mind do you not praise them with too, and likewise make yourself happy? So verse number 76. So you have to appreciate that the person is praising someone, and then because of that, he or she is happy. That joyous happiness of yours would be a source of joy, not something prohibited. A precept given by the excellent ones and a supreme means for assembling others. So if you can actually appreciate others' happiness, then it is there is nothing wrong for that person to be happy. So if someone praises another person you dislike, you should also join the person, and others would find you to be impartial in your attitude. Because others will say that, oh, this person actually praises his own enemy, knowing the truth about that enemy's good qualities. It is said that others are made happy through being praised in this way. If in this way you do not want them to have this happiness, then since it makes him happy, you should cease giving wages and the like to yourself. So when someone praises you, of course you like. And when someone praises people who you like, do you like them? Whereas why should you be unhappy when someone praises another person who's your adversary? Verse number 80. So someone who aspires to help all sentient beings, leading them to their ultimate goal of happiness. If you are someone like that, you should actually admire when others have happiness. Because if you don't do so, then what is the use of saying I actually aspire to work for all sentient beings? Verse number 83. If I do not wish for beings to have even this, how can I wish for them to awaken? And where is there an awakening mind? In one who becomes angry when others receive things. So even if someone actually enjoys temporary happiness or blissful experience, you should not become angry or dislike that, but we should be happy. What does it matter if my enemy is given something or not? Whether they obtain it or whether it remains in the benefactor's house, in either case, I shall get nothing. So if jealousy would get you nowhere, even. And so why? By becoming angry, do I throw away my merits? So if you like fame and gain and so forth, then you have to actually pursue the causes which bring about them. So otherwise, if you go against the cause, then you will not gain those things that you like. Tell me, why am I not angry with myself for not having the causes for gain? Verse number 87, even if your enemies are made unhappy, what is there for you to be joyful about? You're merely wishing for them to be hurt, did not cause them to be injured. And even if the enemy does not suffer as you had wished, what is there for you to be joyful about? If you say, for I shall be satisfied, how could there be anything more wretched than that? This hook cast by the fishermen of disturbing conceptions is unbearably sharp. Having been caught on it, it is certain that I shall be cooked in cauldrons by the guardians of hell. So those who actually hinder your gain and fame and so forth, to them also you should not be unhappy, or you should not dislike them, because it doesn't help for your long life or to gain merit. The honor of praise and fame will not turn into merit or life. It will give me neither strength nor freedom from sickness, and will not provide any physical happiness. If I were aware of what held meaning for me, what value would I find in these? So even if people despise you or criticize you, you should not be too emotionally charged, nor should you do so when people praise you. If all I want is a little mental happiness, I should devote myself to gambling, drinking, and so forth. If for the sake of fame I give away my wealth or get myself killed, what can these mere words of fame do then? Once I have died, to whom will they give pleasure? When the sandcastles collapse, children howl in despair. This shows that if you're really, attached to too much praise and attached too much to praise, or become angry at criticisms, there's no point in that. Likewise, when my praise and reputation decline, my mind becomes like a little child. Since short-lived sounds are inanimate, they cannot possibly think of praising me. But as it makes the bestower of praise happy, my reputation is a source of pleasure for me. Whether this praise is directed at myself or someone else, how shall I be benefited by this joy? Since that joy and happiness is theirs alone, I shall not obtain even a part of it. So, praise and gains also have their negative consequences too. So it happens to people. For example, the monks who study philosophy, they would be perhaps ordinary, simple monks. But as they progress along and gain more and more knowledge, become more better and better scholar, and gains more students, then they become puffed up. And so I know people who have who are good at their studies. I tell them that if they find someone older than an elder monk, they would say, "Oh, this person is my teacher." And then if they find someone younger than them who is very learned, they say, "Oh, this is my student." And so both the ways, they are actually connecting themselves to this I, these people to the I. So we have to be careful not to fall into these kind of traps. So we have Tibetans who kind of become puffed up when they have a number of Western students. And these days, people who become puffed up when they have Chinese students. And some of them actually deceive others, not knowing the entire structure of the Buddhism. So, of course, in order to be able to teach the full, complete path, they must know. But because they don't know the entire path system, they are quite careful, cautious, and not coming out with too much knowledge, because then they may show off their own true color. And so there are people in China, Tibetans in Tibet, who actually are after money, and especially after women. They go to China proper for these. And so these are really injuring the Dharma, damaging the Dharma. So rather than doing this, if people could rather remain simple, it's much better. Thinking that, there are people who actually whom they can go and do something, and then going there could actually lead them to this kind of stray path. A Dzogchen master, was a great person. He had made some promises. One is not riding any animals for transportation, but walking. And the second one is, and even in India we find non-Buddhist teachers actually not using any vehicles, just walking. So they cannot go abroad because they don't use these. They cannot go by plane. So there is one Shankaracharya who was like this. So Tsele Gotsang promised not to ride any animals for transportation, and the second one is not to take non-vegetarian meals, and then the third one is not selling the Dharma. So he has said that it's really sad that people actually give teachings for gaining some money, offerings, and therefore he says that there are people who sell the Dharma, and I pledge not to sell Dharma, and I pledge not to take any offerings for teachings. Therefore, I do also imitate him. So there is some problem when I take the offerings for teaching, because I don't use them myself. What happens is I have to actually distribute them amongst different groups of people, and I have to act as if I were some kind of an accountant. And then I have to say, to this group we should give this much, and this group this much, and so forth. And sometimes people may not be satisfied with that amount that I give them. And so, rather than acting like an accountant or distributor of money, I can be clean and say that I don't have anything to offer. So there may be also in the West, but the worst is in Tibet. There are people who are fake, false lamas. So they are full of worldly concerns, mundane concerns, and full of the negative emotions of the desire realm, and then pretend to be giving some teachings to others in the public. So praise and so forth distract me in 98 and 99. So when you become very famous and gain lots of praises, you actually become puffed up. So there's danger of causing yourself, creating negative karmas that would lead you to lower realms of existence. And therefore, when that happens, and when someone despises or criticizes you, these people who criticize you should be looked at as if they are your spiritual teacher, because they actually avert you from falling into those. Those who wish to cause me suffering are like Buddhas bestowing waves of blessing as they open the door for my not going to an unfortunate realm. Why should I be angry with them? So then sometimes you might say, oh, this person is obstructing me from obstructing my action to do Dharma practice, virtuous practices. So there are, of course, obstacles like this to people inside Tibet. So, but that was number 102. For since there is no fortitude similar to patience, surely I should put it into practice. If due to my own feelings I am not patient with this enemy, then it is only I who am preventing myself from practicing this course for gaining. And then next verse shows the causality of causality. If without it something does not occur, and if with it it does come to be, then since this enemy would be the cause of patience, how can I say that the enemy prevents it? So in order to have patience, practice of patience, you should have some stimuli for that practice. And that stimuli is your adversary. So you cannot practice patience in relation to the Buddha or Master Nagarjuna, and also your teachers, parents, and Dhamma friends. You cannot have them as object of your patience. So perhaps we can practice patience when we are bitten by mosquitoes. So if I find that sometimes if a mosquito is not the carrier of malaria, then I allow them to suck my blood. So there's nothing wrong in doing that, just to give some blood. Rather than being pricked by nettles, it's better to give blood to the mosquitoes, because nettles could be quite irritating. So if I could help benefits even a mosquito with blood, of course, it's always good. Otherwise, there's no other way we can actually serve them, the mosquitoes, except by giving some blood. And so when you are harmed by others, if you could practice patience, what you have is, thanks to that person, you have the practice of patience, and therefore you have to feel gratitude. Grateful to them.
So the mosquito Mosquito doesn't show appreciation even if you give them blood donation. I was once in Oxford and gave a talk. Some professors were there in the front line. Some magnificent looking professors. So I said, some of you are expert biologists. So how do you ask them, how do you differentiate from what is the difference? What is the differentiating line between from what point an living being can show appreciation and from what point they cannot? And none of them gave an answer. They just kept quiet. We are on stanza 104. If without it something does not occur, and if with it does come to be, then since this enemy would be the cause of patience, how can I say that the enemy prevents it? That's stanza 104. So just like one feels happy if you have abundant facilities at home without effort, in the same way, so if in the case of practitioners, especially someone practicing compassion, when somebody harms you or gives you an opportunity to practice compassion by harming you, then you should feel rejoice, because you should think, oh, he gave me an opportunity. Next stanza, a beggar is not an obstacle to generosity, etc. And next is important, next dedication is very important. After practicing compassion, dedicate the compassion to that particular person who harmed you, because that person gave you that opportunity. Stanza 106, there are indeed many beggars in this world, etc. And then if you ask yourself, how can I show compassion to the beggar, as because he doesn't have the motivation or the wish to help you? And the answer is, this is not the right way to think, because it's not important that whether the other person who harmed you has the wish to help you or not, or give you the opportunity or not. Then, because, for example, the complete cessation, like Gokten, and the path, like wisdom, they don't have the compassion to, they don't have the motivation to help you, but they are positive in nature, because they don't have motivation. Next is, therefore, they are indeed, therefore, just like treasure appearing in my house without any effort on my part to pardon it. So if you say, okay, the enemy, on the other hand, has this negative motivation to harm you, whereas the virtuous path, the noble path, wisdom, compassion, etc., doesn't have that motivation to harm you, so I cannot practice compassion to them. So these are so just because they has the motivation to harm you, that itself gives you the opportunity to practice compassion. Otherwise, how will you practice compassion? So these are very sharp logic. So therefore, your enemy is somebody you should sort of show great respect to. So, practice of Dharma has great benefit in keeping your mind calm and happy and tranquil, even if they may not actually change the situation, outside situation for you. For example, in my case, the Chinese calls me a devil, but because of my practice, I don't feel any unhappiness. I just feel compassion. On the other hand, if they call me, if I feel greatly disturbed and angry because they call me devil, I will not be able to harm them. Instead, it will harm myself. So the practice of compassion is a very practical practice to at least keep yourself happy, even if you may not be able to change the external situation. So the next stanza says that, so due to sentient beings, we can accumulate huge amount of merit. Like, for example, those who are close to you, there are three kinds of beings. Those who are, so for example, like things like food, clothing, shelter, everything comes to you through the sentient beings. So, for example, if your enemy harms you and if you practice patience, then the third person, those people, other people think, oh, this person is good because he didn't respond by sort of in an angry way. He rather practiced compassion in a very matured way. So they feel very inspired. And so, on the other hand, due to that, you create good karma and the karma to attain higher rebirths in the next life. And also, many of our if the practice of the 10 virtuous actions are the causes of higher rebirths in future lives, and these you can practice on the basis of sentient beings. And liberation also comes due to the sentient beings. And so wisdom also. And even enlightenment depends on bodhicitta practice. Bodhicitta is based on sentient beings. So here also sentient beings are, the sentient being is crucial to the practice of the bodhicitta practice. So therefore, the next line says there are two fields, the field of sentient beings and the field of the Buddhas. And through the field of sentient beings, one can attain the field of the Buddhas. So the state of enlightenment is enlightened half due to the blessing of the Buddhas, but half due to the opportunity provided to you by sentient beings. So, so if we appreciate the kindness of the Buddhas and then forget appreciating the appreciating the kindness of Mother Sentient Beings for providing you the opportunity, then it is wrong. That is, so therefore attaining both sentient beings and sentient Buddhas are equal to you in terms of helping you attain Buddhahood and practicing the path. So therefore this text says, and are therefore said to be equal. Next, we are on stanza 115. I think next is stanza 116. Stanza 117. Even if so, the essence of these lines, these stanzas, is that the enemy, your enemy, is the excellent object which gives you the opportunity to practice the path and attain enlightenment. And also, sentient beings are like the main source of your success to attain liberation and enlightenment. In the world also, for example, how can we create happiness in this world, happiness and peace? If all the sentient human beings in this, or 7 billion human beings in this world are happy, then we can feel happy. If one person alone is living in lavish life, enjoying, and the rest of the sentient beings, human beings, people who are surrounding you are suffering, then your mind is internally disturbed. So the whole family, human being, is like one family. And so what we need is a good environment, and then human beings living in harmony. So then it is like a happy family. Even if we have, it doesn't matter whether we have great material prosperity or not. If there is love, happiness, harmony in this family, then the family is happy. Even within a wealthy family, if there is no trust, love, and harmony, then there's no happiness in that family. So the reality about the present world is like, the whole world is like one family. Because when there's one problem in one area, it affects the whole world. So therefore, I'm these days I'm stressing a lot these days that the 7 billion human beings are like one family, because of the huge amount of dependent nature of this human beings and the world these days. Then, if we can emphasize on that, then we can create great happiness. And if that happens, then we can also, this division between like nations, races, these things will diminish. So even if you are not a Dharma practitioner and just a regular human being, still that we need happiness and a peaceful world and a peaceful life. So the 3 jewels are the object of refuge for the Buddhist, And in the same way, each religion has their own refuge, like God or Allah or like that. So the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are the three objects of refuge for Buddhists. So in order to understand the quality of the Buddha well, we have to understand Dharma, the meaning of Dharma. If we know the definition or the quality of Dharma well, we will understand the meaning of Sangha. So the main thing is we have to understand the insightful meaning of Dharma. In the Uttar Tantra, there's a definition of Dharma given in the Uttar Tantra, and it's said that Dharma is that which depends on the two truths. This truth of cessation and truth of path. The purified state of emptiness, which is the truth of cessation, or the truth which is the at which the mind is purified of all defilements. The state when all afflictive emotions are completely purified, and that emptiness is the truth of cessation. In the Madhyamika Mulakarika, there's a verse there where it is said that karma and delusion are overcome by emptiness or through emptiness and into emptiness. And Kundalamara, there's a version. So if you say, according to Kundalamara Rinpoche, in Sanskrit, there are two different versions: into emptiness and by emptiness. So if you say into emptiness, then it is the truth of cessation. It is referring to that. If you say through emptiness, it shows the path, which the method or the remedy that overcomes the afflictive emotion. So in the Uttar Tantra, it says that which is unimaginable, non-dual, that cannot be realized. That cannot be grasped. So then that which is pure, clear, and so on, so which shows the path. And the first one shows the cessation, truth of cessation, and the second line shows the truth of path. So such kind of path which is qualified, such qualities is only Dharma. And then the person who practices such a path is this, and who realizes emptiness directly. Is the Sangha. So how can and how could how could they be what? So this Dharma and this Sangha, both arose due to the kindness of the Buddha. Because there was a Buddha, the Buddha taught that path and the path of cessation, and then those who practiced this Dharma could attain liberation and enlightenment. So these are also explained in the second chapter of Brahmana Vartika, and they are extremely profound. So the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels, it is said in the scriptures that these three are the object of refuge for those who are seeking liberation. So this is very, very significant, because if you are seeking liberation, then only these three, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, can help. So, for example, so those who I think His Holiness's stanza on 124, 125. So next, His Holiness says, so first, what is the Buddha? First one practice compassion and then increase the practice of compassion infinitely. When it reached that state, when the power of compassion has become infinite, that is the state of Buddhahood. So therefore, if we harm sentient beings, so all the Buddhas who have infinite compassion will never be pleased. If we despise sentient beings, bully sentient beings, especially those who are poor and downtrodden, and then flatter those who are higher and rich. So if we do like that, that is like, it's wrong to show respect to the Buddha. The Buddha has practiced compassion for eons and eons, ever since the time he generated compassion, and then finally attained Buddhahood, and compassion to practice to help sentient beings. And now, if we want to take refuge in such a Buddha, then at the same time abandon sentient beings, despise sentient beings, then it is contradictory to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. This is really true. So until now, we have been under the control of self-cherishing mind, which is so powerful, and so from now on, we should engage in helping sentient beings, being kind to sentient beings, and serving sentient beings. So this only through that kind of practice we can please the Buddhas. So I think we are on stanza 127. pleasing living beings delights the Tathagatas and perfectly accomplishes my own purpose as well. In addition, it dispels the pain and misery of the universe. Therefore, I should always practice it. So if you practice compassion to sentient beings, it will make you happy in this life and help you in future lives also. So for both this life and future lives, compassion is the supreme practice. So the practice, just like it is said in the 7-verse mind training, whenever or wherever you go, always consider yourself less important than others. If you want to really love us, if we really love us and want to do good for yourself, do it in a smart way, not in a foolish way. Don't do it in a destructive way. So the right way to do that is by practicing compassion to sentient beings. So therefore that line says, and perfectly accomplishes my own purpose as well. So why we are stuck in samsara? Because of the self-cherishing mind. And the next line says, in addition, it dispels the pain and misery of the universe. So it is a sort of mutually beneficial practice. It helps the Buddhas, it helps you oneself. Therefore, I should always practice it. So it says one should for always practice not despising and looking down, treating others badly, and practicing compassion. Next line, next stanza, 128. For example, should some of the king's men, etc. And then 129. For they see that these men are not alone, but are supported by the might of the king. Likewise, I should not underestimate weak beings who cause me a little harm. 130, for they are supported by the guardians of hell and by the compassionate ones. So behaving like these, like the subjects. So now, not only we should not harm sentient beings, but through every means try to help them and do benefit to them. If we do that, then it says, for they are like the subjects of that free king and should please all sentient beings. For example, let me tell you something. It's not I'm boasting or bragging. I received the practice of Bodhisattva Charya in the 1961 or something. So at that time I used to think bodhicitta is a very far away practice. Emptiness is slightly easier. In 1967 I received it. I taught, since then I preached it, and then I also started practicing myself. And since then, it really changed my mind. And the result is that I'm myself happier, and no tension, I don't feel tension or unhappiness, not much attachment. And that also affects the body, my hygiene. My friends, when they meet me, tell me, your advance is quite aged, but you have a very youthful, quite a youthful face. And what is the secret? My answer to them is, it's a personal secret. I'm not going to tell you. I just jokingly say that. Main thing is I'm a Buddhist bhikshu monk, so I live my life on the basis of my Dharma practice, mainly because I don't, and also because of my practice, I don't have much emotional disturbance in my mind, and that is keeping me very calm and happy, and it's affecting my body in a positive way. So you too, you who are here, not the main exercise is very important. Physical exercise is very important, but also emphasize on keeping your mind calm, detached, and happy. For example, if you are angry, which occurs sometimes, just try to forget it immediately, and always try to keep a calm, happy, sort of detached mind. That will greatly help you. So, the Chakravartin, the emperor of the mythological king who is supposed to be the ruler of the three worlds, is said to be something which we can attain through good karma. So if we practice these things, then we will be able to attain, the text says, attain the state of this king. So with this we finished the chapter on patience. Next is on enthusiasm. So there are three patience with regard to withstand sort of harm from other people. Next is sort of patience when people harm you in not trying to avoiding anger, and then and also not being lazy and facing hardship like that. So now with patience, what should you do? You should engage in enthusiasm, which is now we are on chapter 7. If we have enthusiasm and diligence, then with diligence you can your knowledge, your practice, your path, everything increases. Without diligence and enthusiasm, then you give up, because, for example, you try to read a book, then you don't understand, and then you just give up. Because you don't understand, you have to study and then try to make sure understand the point. That's called diligence. If you just stay as uneducated because you find something hard to understand, you have no diligence to learn it, then that's pointless. So the next line. So the stanza says, having patience, I should develop enthusiasm. Next stanza, what is enthusiasm? It is finding joy in what is wholesome, etc. So what is enthusiasm? Diligence. Intelligence is positive. It means positive diligence. Virtuous enthusiasm, to doing enthusiasm and diligence in doing good things, positive things, not in bad things. Engaging in something with diligence and enthusiasm, not like showing diligence in doing harmful things to harm sentient beings. That is not. So how to practice enthusiasm? We should understand the obstacles that obstructs practicing enthusiasm. So that is shown by the next line. As laziness stanza 3, because of attachment to the pleasurable taste of idleness, because of craving for sleep, and because of having no disillusion with the misery of cyclic existence, laziness grows very strong. So laziness is one. Attraction to what is harmful is second. So there are 7 billion human beings in this world. Most are actually sort of have this second laziness, which is attraction to what is harmful. Now, for example, when I look down from my house, from the room above this hotel, from around 7, you see cars and vehicles started piling up. So they are all working very hard. This is called attraction to what is harmful. They are all working hard, but for very small purpose meanings. On the other hand, if you are engaging in studying, it's very good. It's slightly better because it increases your knowledge. But even here, the knowledge here is for increasing how to improve material benefit. So in this world, most people who have knowledge, most of the problems in this world are created by people who are knowledgeable. So knowledge is not knowledge alone is not helping to subdue the mind, because the knowledge is designed. The knowledge they have gained is designed to create material benefit and harm other beings. So it's not designed to subdue and make the mind happier. So this is called attraction to what is harmful. This is a form of laziness. So, in this one is the people are very diligent, but in a negative way. And finally, the third one is despising oneself out of despondency. That means saying, okay, I cannot achieve anything. I don't have the ability. I don't have confidence. So sort of self-denial. So many of us have this. For example, if a task is something difficult, a challenging task, then you think, oh, I cannot do this. This is too hard for me. And you give up. This is the third one. This is also a form of laziness. So usually I say, Buddhism, the Buddha Dharma, from the beginning the Buddhas taught the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, truth of cause, truth of cessation, and truth of path. The first two truths are the suffering and its cause. And then third, the Buddhas showed the path of cessation. The truth of cessation. And then the fourth path, which can lead to this cessation. So if there is a path, then that sort of inspire you the enthusiasm to attain that cessation, because then you find that it is possible to attain the cessation. So therefore, first, generally understand the meaning of liberation, what is enlightenment, and then understand that the general path of Buddhism, and then understand that these states are attainable. If it is taught in that way, it is that's the right thing. We understands the point. Otherwise, if just say if you do something negative action, you will go to hell. That's not the right way to teach. For example, in Tibet, there's a story. One person came to meet an abbot in a monastery, and when the man reached there, he met the attendant of the abbot, and the attendant said, the abbot is not at the monastery today, and the man asked, where has he gone? And the attendant said, today the abbot has gone somewhere to fool old man and woman, and by creating fear in them. So that's the wrong way. That's what this is showing. Is just saying, if you do negative things, you will go to hell. It's just creating fear, and you will go to hell. That's not the right way to teach. You have to one has to teach the general path, just like the Buddha's taught, the Four Noble Truths. The order is very important. So Buddhism should be based on a very good understanding of the general path. Then there will be enthusiasm and joy to engage in its practice. So this is the third laziness, which is called laziness of despondency. So when you have this, for example, you say the Buddha attained his Buddhahood after 3 countless eons of practice, then we just totally get freaked out because it's such a long period. So when we hear such a statement, then we think, oh, this is unimaginable. How can I do something like that? But at the same time, we think, at the same time, if we just stay in samsara for 3 countless eons, at the same time, it's the same thing. Instead, it's better you start taking the first step, because whether you practice or not, you will still stay in the samsara for 3 countless eons. So these 3 kinds of laziness we should try to identify. Next, stanza 3, because of attachment to the pleasurable taste of idleness, because of craving for sleep, and because of having no delusion with the misery of cycle existence, etc. Stanza 4, enmeshed in the snare of disturbing conceptions, and so on. So we have been under the force of afflictive emotion until now in samsara, and this body. So this very body itself is a result of karmic actions, particularly afflictive emotion. So this body itself is acting as the base for the generation of afflictive emotions. So therefore the cyclic existence, which is considered as something which has 5 aspects. So within while one cyclic existence of the 12th link of one cycle is being completed, many other 12th link cycles start and end. So, for example, we got up this morning until now. If we have no practice of emptiness and bodhicitta, then from morning until now, how many ignorances of self-grasping has arisen? and how many actions we have committed. All these are the beginnings, sort of actions which begins the 12-link cycle. So all these leave their imprints on our mental, on our subtle mind. So where these imprints are put, there are different versions according to Yogacara school, according to the Madhyamika school, Chandakirti, and has said in his Madhyamika Avatara that it is just the mere eye, which is the ultimate medium on which the imprint is put, and the subtle consciousness is the temporary medium. So, and every day we create thousands and tens and thousands of imprints, sort of acts which starts the 12 cycles. And so this process is going on every day. So only if we can sort of counteract the ignorance itself, this cycle will keep on turning. Just like if we cannot switch off the main switch of a machine, engine, which is running, then this engine will keep on running. If we just press off the main switch, then the engine will suddenly come to a halt. So that main switch is the first of the 12 links, which is ignorance, which is the ignorance of not knowing the ultimate truth, emptiness, and instead holding to an inherent self. And that leads to action, negative action, and positive action, and then the neutral action. So these three actions goes back to the self-grasping ignorance, and the antidote to that is emptiness. Without that, without a proper understanding of realization of emptiness, nothing can stop this engine. Neither a deity with meditation, nor compassion, nor bodhicitta. Nothing can stop this stop this ignorance. For example, practices like compassion, bodhicitta, etc. are very powerful practices, but they cannot overcome self-grasping, inherently grasping mind, because these two minds, the self-grasping and compassion, they don't, they are not, how to say, their mode of perception is not contradictory. They are not like opposite to each other. Self-grasping can be the mind which grabs emptiness, can be overcome or directly counteracted upon only by the mind which sees the object as existing empty of inheritance. So, because these two minds are opposites. When this, so if we realize this, then all the other points that follows, we can understand automatically. In Tibet earlier, at one time, there was a period when people didn't pay much attention to the Madhyamika philosophy. So the great Sakya master Rendava Shunulotu, he emphasized a lot on Madhyamika philosophy, the middle view philosophy. So he emphasized on this so much that then sort of tradition started which sort of says that if you sit, it's emptiness on emptiness. If you sleep, meditate on emptiness. And if you meditate on emptiness. This was written in a text written by Minya Kunju or something, in a commentary on Bodhisattva Charya. So we are not saying here that there was no emphasis on emptiness before that period, but ever since Rendava Shunulotu came, he sort of made this an extremely widespread tradition, the hallmark of Buddhism. So if we understand well what is liberation and what is enlightenment, then we understand the importance of the perfect human basis, the 8 lashes and the 10, 8 facilities, 10 opportunities. What these mean, what is leisure and what is I think maybe you can say facilities. So this depends on the understanding of emptiness. So if I then one realizes that if I don't use this human body well, then I'm just wasting away this great human basis of 8 lashes and 10 facilities. We are on stanza 9, 10. Stanza 11 and 12. So the text is saying, His Holiness says, if you hope of attaining a great result without pursuing with immense diligence, it's just sort of a dream. It will never happen. So in this life, we have attained this human body, which is like a boat, to cross the ocean, the river of samsara. So generally, the heavenly realm body is considered higher than the human realm. But in order for practicing Dharma, like emptiness, bodhicitta, like that, the human realm and the rebirth is considered more useful for that purpose. So we cannot subdue or overcome our afflicted emotions through praying, but we can do that only through meditating on emptiness and exposing the mistake of the self-cherishing mind, the self-grasping mind. So, these advices in the Bodhisattva Charya uses logic in such a way that they make the self-cherishing mind speechless. Nothing to say. However, we have self-grasping mind and self-cherishing mind so all the time so spontaneous because we have been habituated. We were so used to these minds for many, many lifetimes, and they just keep on arising. So now these lines are saying attaining the human rebirth is extremely important. So it says, this is no time for sleep, you fool. Next stanza 15. So don't feel despondency, but rather feel confident. So next, how to practice diligence. So there are four sort of divisions here. So if you think I cannot attain enlightenment because I'm such a wretched human being, don't do that. Without indulging in despondency, I should gather the support for enthusiasm. And the line says, and earnestly take control of myself. Then by seeing the equality between self and others, I should practice exchanging self for others. I should never indulge in despondency by entertaining such thought as, how shall I ever awaken, how the Tathagatas who speak what is true, etc. Because even insects, flies, and mosquitoes, like that sort of small animals, bees can attain enlightenment because they have the potential, the seed, the energy to attain enlightenment. So it will be so. Next stanza 19. It will be so if I do not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life. Why should someone like myself, who has been born in the human race with human intelligence and also having the faculty, power to differentiate between the temporary benefit and long-term benefit, not attain awakening since I'm able to recognize what is beneficial and what is of harm. So this is something we human beings can study, learn, understand, advise, and think upon. We have that potential. So therefore it says no need to feel despondency or discouraged. So nevertheless, it frightens me to think that stanza 21. So, but how can I sort of take the challenge of a bodhisattva path by giving away their life, sacrificing their lives for sentient beings, giving away their parts of their body, etc.? How can I take such a challenge? Then there's for over countless myriads of eons, I have been cut, stabbed, burned, and flayed, innumerable, but I have not. In the Ratnavali by Nagarjuna, it is explained that so many different practices of the bodhisattvas. So if you think, how can I engage in such vast practice, then here the text explains the ways to feel the determination to practice that. The explains a practice called Parameshi, the four immeasurable sort of immense practice. And the main practice is bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, once you have the practice of bodhicitta to attain enlightenment, one for all sentient beings. So if you practice do one practice, like a practice of saying Om Mani Padme Hum for oneself, the benefit is very tiny. But at the same time, if you say that for all sentient beings, then the benefit is huge. So similarly, Nagarjuna has said that if you practice so the object, the Buddha, who's our object of refuge, has attained enlightenment for the sake of infinite sentient beings for eons of practice. So because of that, the power of the object of refuge is so huge. And so even if our own practices, we take baby step practices because of the motivation to attain enlightenment, the practices become so powerful. Stanza 23, I think. Stanza 24. So bodhisattvas, because
verse number 28, now 29. So if you persevere in cultivating bodhicitta and you have gained some experience of it, then you'll see that what it'll do is that from life after life, it'll be you'll be able to go from blissful existence to blissful existence, and you'll find this very life that you have used it meaningfully. So we'll stop here. Due to the strength of awakening mind, the Bodhisattvas consumed their previous transgressions. No. Number 30. So we'll stop here in order to, His Holiness says, in order to actually traverse from blissful to blissful state, we need first to fill our stomach. So in the afternoon, we'll start with question and answer first. So please bring your questions in the afternoon session, the first session.